Am I the a-hole for punishing my parents like they punished me? This is gonna dip into a little childhood trauma. I, 27F, have stopped talking to my parents, 54F, 44 male, and 2 brothers, 35 male, 21 male. My brothers haven't done anything wrong in recent years, it's just that I don't want them to tell my parents about me. For this to make any sense, I'll illustrate the childhood a little bit. As you can make out, I was the only daughter. We all have different dads, which might play into my treatment due to I was the only bastard child. The man who I call my father is my youngest brother's dad, who adopted me at 6. Growing up, I was the only one given chores. Was treated like Cinderella, was the one that cooked, cleaned the house, and all the outdoor chores as well. I was a good kid other than my depression that went untreated due to my parents believing kids couldn't be depressed. A lot of days I would be missing energy to do anything. Those are the day I'd get beat by my mother and put on punishment until I admitted I was wrong. Fast forward to October of 2020, which was a bad year for everyone. My depression with COVID skyrocketed with the quarantine and separating from my ex-husband the year before. Darkness engulfed me and I snapped, trying to take my own life. Someone called 911 before my mistake was permanent, but the most traumatized part was when my mother came to talk to me being loaded onto the ambulance. Not to see how I was doing, but to tell me I was homeless now and not to come back to her house. Instantly crushed, because in a moment I needed her, she abandoned me. My father is a different can of worms. He felt it was his duty to communicate with my ex-husband and tell him my whole life. I didn't learn about this till 6 months after my suicide attempt. Now my ex-husband has weaponized all the information my father has told him, which I don't even fully know what was told or if any of it was fabricated. I spoke to my parents to tell them that I can't forgive their actions until they fully understand what they did and can admit to it. They now both have full communication with my ex-husband, which is the exact opposite of what I need to trust them. AITA for not speaking to my parents until they admit they're wrong for my treatment. I'm only asking now after all these years because I'm pregnant and I plan on never letting them know the child exists. Side note, even if you find me the asshole, I most likely won't be letting him back into my life due to the fact my mental health has improved greatly the more time I spend away from them. I never thought I could feel happy until I stopped talking to them and stopped trying to be that perfect daughter they tried to create. This was more to get it off my chest and hopefully show someone toxic relationship aren't worth it, no matter who it is. Am I the a-hole? My partner offered another woman food from our share plate while on a date. My partner, M30, and I, F30, were on the first date we have had in about a year due to financial struggles. I had really missed spending quality time with him, but I knew I had to be patient and keep working hard to pay our bills. We finally got on top of everything and had a really good week, so he offered to take us out. We had a great night, visited a nice bar, played at the arcade, then went for some food. At this point he asked me to go 50-50 on paying for the meal because again, money is tight. I didn't mind, I was just enjoying our time together. The share plate we ordered was brought out to us and I asked my partner to grab some condiments from the front for us. While he was gone, a woman came in from the street and started to ask me if she could have some of our food. She didn't look homeless. She had tattoos all over her face and a casual outfit. This is where I start to feel like an asshole. I shook my head no. I felt a bit uncomfortable and didn't want to be in that situation where a stranger is asking me for food while I'm sitting alone at a table. My partner came back and I was trying to catch his eye and show him that I was uncomfortable and I was shaking my head no. He didn't look at me. He listened to the woman's request and immediately said yes of course, even went to the counter to grab a takeaway box and picked up the plate and offered her to take whatever she wanted. I felt really frozen and shocked. The woman said about me, "Oh, she doesn't look too happy," while fingering the part of the meal that I had ordered. She didn't take it and said to my partner, "Oh, I better just take something from your side instead." He stood there silently obliging, waiting for her to take what she wanted. She looked at me one last time and my face obviously looked unhappy and displeased. She commented on my facial expression, "Wow, you look angry," and left with her takeaway box. I didn't feel like eating at all after that. My partner was genuinely confused, thinking he was impressing me by doing a kind deed. But I felt disrespected by both of them and my appetite had gone. I also felt like a huge asshole, not wanting to share my food with a hungry stranger when my partner is so willing to do it. His reason is that he's been in that situation before. I would argue that we literally don't know the woman's situation. It felt like everyone in the store was judging me and I desperately wanted to leave. We grabbed a takeaway box and started walking to the car. My partner was very upset and just walked in front of me the whole time. I felt ashamed and that I didn't deserve any of the food, so I asked if we could just give it to a homeless person, which we did. My partner walked off really fast without me and I caught up to him at the car 5 minutes later. He was super angry at me, saying he'd been in that situation before and why couldn't I just understand. I just started crying and saying I felt horrible. He calmed down, but when I tried to talk about how his actions upset me, that he didn't look at me and that he was so open with this stranger, and that it made me feel invisible and disregarded, he said it was extremely difficult to understand me. Am I the a-hole?
Am I the a-hole for putting my neighbor on YouTube? So over the last year and a half, I've been dealing with neighbor harassing me every time I go in my backyard. Why? Because I decided to put up a wood privacy fence in my backyard on all 3 sides. Well, because I'm 70 years old, I have 3 little dogs and I would like privacy from all 3 of my neighbors. While I was building my fence last spring, my neighbor Larry decided he would come over and tell me not to put up the fence because he likes to look through into my yard. My son and I, while putting in the fence in that moment, laughed and said, "Well, Larry, this is not your property and well, I am putting up this fence." He said a few not so nice words and that was the end of it. Well, that's what I thought anyway. Immediately after, I'm trying to enjoy my new fenced-in yard. My idiot for a neighbor puts a stump right next to the back of the fence and stares over at me every time I'm in the backyard. He's retired or out of work, I'm really not sure, but he's really creeping me out. I believe he's trying to prove to me that my expensive fence doesn't work to provide privacy from him and that I should have listened to him. After a few weeks of my Larry staring over my fence, I of course said stop being a creep along with another few words, and that's really when the shush *** hits the fan. Now when I'm outside training my dogs I have 3 little mini schnauzers that I work with daily. He mimics me like a parrot and claps when I say good girl or come here or whatever it is. I try to ignore him and even tried to call the police. The police told me that there is nothing they could do if I didn't have evidence of harassment. This is when it really gets interesting. I decided to get 4 cameras in my backyard to catch his harassment. Obviously, Larry doesn't like that and has now begun to call me homosexual slanders. I'm not a homosexual man, but I really don't like being called those names when he sees me outside. Also, he had become so bad he was throwing glass into my yard along with I'm not sure what else, trying to, I would imagine, hurting my dogs, which is now really making me worried. I contacted the police, but they are now telling me there is still nothing they can do. So the only option I could think of to put the video evidence of everything he's been doing on YouTube. Let's say there's over 12 videos on YouTube and still going up daily. I told him he's on YouTube under my idiot neighbor in our last confrontation, and then he told me to come over and fight him. Am I the a-hole for taking it this far? I don't feel like I have a lot of other options right now. I've lived in this house for 15 years and we've never had a problem until this point. I really appreciate any feedback. Thanks.